Imagine, if you will, standing on the shore of an ancient sea 150 million years ago. The water laps at your feet, but this is not the ocean you know. No whales breach these waters. No seabirds cry overhead. Yet something extraordinary is about to unfold, a transformation so profound it will reshape life on Earth forever. In these warm Jurassic seas, a group of reptiles is making the most audacious journey imaginable, leaving the safety of solid ground to claim the vast alien realm of the ocean. Before we continue this journey, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story resonates with you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extraordinary for you. This is the story of perhaps the greatest evolutionary leap ever attempted. Consider what it means to abandon the land. For millions of years, reptiles had mastered terrestrial life, their scaly skin preventing water loss, their powerful limbs carrying them across continents, their lungs perfectly adapted to breathing air. Yet somehow, these creatures looked toward the horizon, where water met sky, and made a choice that defied logic. They would trade their birthright for something far more uncertain. The ocean is not merely water, it is pressure that would crush the unprepared, salt that would poison the unprotected, depths that would drown the unequipped. It is a three-dimensional maze where gravity means nothing and direction becomes relative. It is a place where the familiar rules of land, life simply, cease to exist. And yet, these ancient reptiles saw opportunity where others saw impossibility. The transformation did not happen overnight. Evolution rarely deals in sudden revelations. It prefers the patient sculpture of countless generations. Picture those first tentative steps into shallow lagoons, reptiles that found food more abundant in coastal waters. Generation by generation, those better suited to aquatic life passed on their gifts. Legs slowly, flattened into paddles, claws gave way to flippers. The rigid architecture of land-dwelling bodies yielded to something altogether more fluid. Their shells, those fortress walls that had protected them on land, underwent perhaps the most remarkable redesign in evolutionary history. No longer mere armor, they became something far more sophisticated, hydrodynamic marvels that could slice through water with submarine efficiency. The dome-shaped shells of their terrestrial ancestors flattened and streamlined. Every ridge, every curve, every seemingly minor detail was refined by the ocean's demands until these reptiles moved through water with a grace that would make dolphins envious. But shells were only the beginning. The real revolution happened inside their bodies, changes so fundamental they rewrote the rules of reptilian existence. Their ribs, once rigid supports for land-based life, developed the extraordinary ability to collapse inward. This was not weakness. This was engineering genius. When diving to crushing depths, their ribs would fold like an accordion, allowing their lungs to compress to a fraction of their surface size. They learned to become smaller versions of themselves, transforming under pressure like living origami. Behind their eyes, something equally remarkable evolved. Salt glands. These microscopic marvels solved the ocean's cruelest paradox, surrounded by water, yet dying of thirst. Every drop of seawater contains enough salt to dehydrate a land animal, yet these newly aquatic reptiles developed their own desalination plants. Their salt glands work continuously, filtering deadly sodium from their bloodstream and expelling it through specialized ducts. They literally cry tears twice as salty as the ocean itself, not from sorrow but from survival. The fossil record preserves these moments of transformation like pages in an ancient book. In 1887, in a German quarry where workers sought limestone for construction, something extraordinary emerged from rock that had lain undisturbed for millions of years. A worker's chisel struck what appeared to be stone, but the stone had ribs. It had a skull. It had flippers, where no land animal should have flippers. This was the first glimpse of Archelon, the ancient sea turtle. When paleontologists finally extracted the complete skeleton, they found themselves face to face with a giant. This was not merely a large turtle. This was a creature that redefined what turtle meant. Archelon stretched 12 feet from nose to tail, its flippers spanning 15 feet across. Imagine standing beside such a creature. Its head alone was larger than most turtles today. This was a reptile built for an ocean planet, a master of waters that no longer exist. The significance goes beyond size. Archelon represents a moment in time when the ocean belonged to reptiles. These were the days before mammals claimed the seas, before the first whale took its tentative steps into water. The ocean was a reptilian realm, and creatures like Archelon were its undisputed lords. But evolution is a story of trials and catastrophes as much as triumphs. 66 million years ago, the sky caught fire. An asteroid 6 miles across struck the Earth with the force of billions of atomic bombs. In an instant, the rules of existence changed. Rock vaporized. Forests ignited across continents. The sky filled with debris that blocked the sun for months, perhaps years. Temperatures plummeted. Photosynthesis ceased. The age of dinosaurs ended not with a whimper but with apocalypse. Yet in the ocean's depths, something survived. While the mighty tyrannosaurs perished and the great sauropods fell silent forever, the sea turtles endured. How? The answer lies in their revolutionary design. As the world above burned and froze, they dove deep into waters that remained stable. Their compressed air diving systems allowed them to wait out the catastrophe in the ocean's eternal twilight. Their salt glands kept them alive when fresh water sources vanished. Their omnivorous diets meant they could survive on whatever the post-apocalyptic ocean offered. They emerged into a changed world, one where mammals would eventually inherit the land, where new forms of life would fill the ecological gaps left by extinction. But the sea turtles had earned something precious. They had become living bridges between the age of reptiles and our modern world. Every sea turtle swimming today carries within its genes the memory of that ancient transformation, the wisdom of creatures that chose the impossible and made it possible. The story written in stone continues to unfold. In 2009, in the fossil-rich hills of Colombia, researchers made another extraordinary discovery. They uncovered evidence of the earliest sea turtle migrations, fossilized tracks leading from ancient beaches into vanished seas. Here was proof that the urge to return to natal beaches, that mysterious homing instinct that guides modern sea turtles across thousands of miles of ocean, existed from the very beginning. These tracks tell us something profound about the nature of home. Even as these reptiles conquered the boundless ocean, they never forgot the beaches where they were born. Somehow, through millions of years of evolution, through catastrophic extinctions and planetary transformations, they maintained their connection to specific grains of sand, specific coastlines, specific magnetic signatures that would guide them home across impossible distances. In laboratories today, patient paleontologists continue to piece together this ancient puzzle. They study stomach stones, gastroliths found within fossilized remains, revealing the diets of creatures that vanished eons ago. They analyze isotopes locked within ancient shells, reading chemical signatures like tree rings to understand migration patterns that span geological time. Each discovery adds another piece to our higher understanding of how reptiles became ocean wanderers. Perhaps most remarkably, they have found evidence that these ancient mariners possessed sophisticated social behaviors. Fossil sites preserve multiple individuals together, suggesting coordinated movements, shared feeding areas, perhaps even communication systems we can barely imagine. These were not simple reptiles, mindlessly swimming through prehistoric seas. They were intelligent, social creatures with complex relationships to their environment and each other. The transformation from land to sea represents more than evolutionary adaptation. It embodies the very essence of possibility itself. When the first reptile looked toward the ocean and saw not a barrier but an opportunity, it set in motion one of life's greatest adventures. These creatures didn't simply move to the ocean, they reimagined what it meant to be alive on a water planet. Today, as we watch a sea turtle surface to breathe, we witness the living legacy of that ancient decision. In their graceful movements through water, in their ability to dive to crushing depths, in their navigation across featureless oceans, we see the triumph of life over limitation. They carry within their very bodies the blueprints for conquering the impossible. Tomorrow, we will meet the 7 faces of this ancient wisdom, the modern heirs to that Jurassic revolution, each one a masterpiece of evolutionary artistry. We will discover how each species found its own solution to the challenge of ocean life, how diversity itself became their greatest strength. But tonight, let us marvel at the simple audacity of that first step into the waves, when reptiles decided to claim the ocean as their own. The story of sea turtles is ultimately the story of transformation itself, proof that life finds ways to flourish in the most unexpected places, that boundaries exist only until life finds a way to cross them, and that sometimes the greatest journeys begin with a single, impossible dream of what might be possible in the vast blue beyond. From that ancient revolution in the Jurassic seas emerged something extraordinary, not one solution to ocean life, but 7. 7 distinct answers to the same impossible question. How does a reptile master the sea? Each species represents a different evolutionary path, a unique interpretation of what it means to be a sea turtle. Together, they form a living library of aquatic wisdom, each chapter written over millions of years of trial and triumph. Consider the leatherback, the ocean's gentle giant, and perhaps the most remarkable reptile alive today. When you first encounter one, your assumptions about what a turtle should be simply dissolve. There is no hard shell, no protective dome of bone and horn. Instead, nature has wrapped this magnificent creature in something far more sophisticated, a flexible, leather-like carapace that moves with the rhythm of the sea itself. This is not armor, this is engineering beyond our current understanding. The leatherback's shell consists of thousands of tiny bone plates embedded in a matrix of cartilage and skin. As she dives toward the ocean floor, this revolutionary design allows her entire body to compress under crushing pressure. At 4,000 feet below the surface, where the weight of water would implode a submarine, her ribs fold inward, her lungs collapse to the size of oranges. Yet she continues deeper still. Watch her descend, and you witness one of nature's most extraordinary transformations. Her heart rate drops from 25 beats per minute to just 1. Blood flow redirects away from non-essential organs, concentrating oxygen only where it's desperately needed. Special proteins in her bloodstream prevent the nitrogen narcosis that would kill other air-breathing animals at such depths. She becomes, in essence, a living diving bell, a warm-blooded creature operating in a realm that should belong only to fish and invertebrates. What draws her to these crushing depths? Jellyfish. The ocean's most abundant and perhaps most overlooked residents become fuel for the planet's largest reptile. She can consume 600 pounds of jellyfish daily, a diet that would be impossible to sustain in shallow waters. Her throat is lined with backward-pointing spines that ensure these gelatinous meals travel only one direction. She has become the ocean's vacuum cleaner, converting drifting plankton into powerful swimming muscle. Her migrations humble our understanding of navigation and endurance. Researchers tracking one female documented a journey that redefined what we thought possible. 12,000 miles in 647 days. She crossed entire ocean basins, from Indonesian waters to the coast of Oregon, maintaining a nearly straight course across the featureless Pacific. This wasn't wandering, this was precision navigation across distances that challenge our best technology. But the leatherback represents only one solution to ocean mastery. Meet the green turtle, and discover a creature that rewrites the rules of reptilian biology through the most unexpected transformation of all. She becomes vegetarian. Not immediately, not from birth, but through a life-stage metamorphosis as dramatic as a caterpillar becoming a butterfly. Hatchling green turtles enter the world as fierce carnivores, their tiny jaws designed for capturing jellyfish, small crustaceans, and fish eggs. They hunt with the intensity of miniature predators, fueling rapid growth on protein-rich prey. But somewhere between youth and maturity, at precisely the right moment in their development, something remarkable happens. Their digestive system transforms, their jaws reshape, their intestines lengthen dramatically to process plant matter. They become the ocean's only herbivorous reptile. This transformation is more than dietary, it's philosophical. Adult green turtles abandon the competition of predation for the in-brew patience of grazing. They discover underwater meadows of seagrass, vast prairies that exist just below the surface in shallow tropical waters. Here they become farmers of the sea, maintaining specific plots with the dedication of agricultural specialists. Each turtle tends her chosen meadow with remarkable precision. She crops the grass to optimal lengths, preventing overgrowth that would trap sediment and suffocate the roots. Her grazing stimulates new growth, creating the perfect environment for countless small creatures that shelter in the grass blades. Remove green turtles from a seagrass ecosystem, and within months, the meadows collapse. Tall grasses trap sediment, light cannot penetrate to the roots, and entire underwater prairies transform into barren sand. Some green turtles live for over 80 years, spending decades in the same underwater meadows, becoming living landmarks for countless generations of fish and invertebrates. They are the gardeners of the sea, the caretakers of ecosystems that support marine life throughout the tropics. Now, consider the hawksbill, nature's living jewel and perhaps the most tragically beautiful of all sea turtles. Her shell displays patterns so stunning that for centuries humans valued it more than gold. The distinctive overlapping plates, or scutes, create amber and brown tortoiseshell patterns that vary uniquely on every individual. No two hawksbills wear identical shells, each is a masterpiece of natural artistry. But beauty nearly became the hawksbill's undoing. For generations, these shells adorned combs, jewelry, and decorative objects. Entire populations vanished to feed human desire for their exquisite carapaces. By the 1970s, hawksbills teetered on the edge of extinction, their numbers reduced to a few thousand nesting females worldwide. Yet hawksbills possess a secret weapon that makes them irreplaceable in ocean ecosystems. They have evolved to eat what no other creature can safely: consume toxic sponges. These colourful, seemingly innocent reef inhabitants produce chemical cocktails that would kill most marine animals. Hawksbills not only survive this poisonous diet, they thrive on it. Their specialized metabolism processes sponge toxins that would devastate other creatures. They become living recycling centers, converting deadly reef sponges into harmless turtle biomass. This unique diet makes them the reef's cleanup crew, preventing sponges from overgrowing and smothering the corals that hundreds of other species depend upon. Each hawksbill maintains specific feeding territories on coral reefs, returning to the same sponge gardens year after year. Their selective feeding maintains the delicate balance that allows coral reefs to flourish. Without hawksbills, many Caribbean reefs would transform from vibrant underwater cities into sponge-dominated wastelands. Travel to Australian waters, and you'll encounter the ocean's homebody, the flatback turtle. While her cousins cross ocean basins and dive to crushing depths, the flatback has chosen a different strategy entirely. She never ventures into the deep ocean, spending her entire life in the shallow waters of Australia's continental shelf. This isn't limitation, it's specialization. Flatback turtles have evolved to exploit the rich feeding grounds of Australia's coastal waters. Their shells are indeed flatter than other species, an adaptation that helps them navigate the shallow reef systems and mudflats where they forage. They feed on sea cucumbers, soft corals, and mollusks prey abundant in Australia's unique marine environment. Their reproductive strategy reflects this coastal lifestyle. Unlike other sea turtles that produce over 100 eggs per nest, flatbacks lay only 50 large eggs. Each hatchling emerges significantly larger than other species' young, big enough to avoid many predators that would consume smaller hatchlings. Quality over quantity becomes their survival strategy. Flatbacks remind us that not every evolutionary success story involves epic migrations or extreme adaptations. Sometimes the greatest wisdom lies in knowing your limits, in finding abundance close to home rather than seeking it across vast distances. The loggerhead turtle represents another approach entirely. She becomes the ocean's construction worker. Her massive head houses jaws capable of delivering 600 pounds of pressure per square inch. This incredible force allows her to crush shells that would defeat other predators. Conch shells, whelk shells, horseshoe crabs, prey that relies on armor for protection, becomes accessible to loggerhead's powerful jaws. Watch a loggerhead hunt, and you observe a master at work. She positions herself carefully, angles her attack precisely, then delivers devastating force to exactly the right spot on her prey's shell. The crack echoes through the water as armor that took years to grow shatters in an instant. She has become the ocean's can opener, accessing nutritious meals hidden within seemingly impenetrable shells. But loggerheads possess another remarkable trait: they serve as living cruise ships for dozens of smaller creatures. Up to 100 different species hitchhike on a single loggerhead turtle. Specialized barnacles found nowhere else on Earth attached to their shells. Small fish follow them like faithful companions, feeding on parasites and scraps from their powerful feeding sessions. Each loggerhead becomes a mobile ecosystem, carrying an entire community across the ocean's vastness. Finally, meet the ocean's most spectacular performers, the Kemp's Ridley and Olive Ridley turtles. These species have developed perhaps the most extraordinary nesting behavior in the animal kingdom, the arrabada. In Spanish, the word means arrival, but it hardly captures the magnitude of these oceanic spectacles. Picture a moonlit beach in Costa Rica as the first Olive Ridley emerges from the waves. She is followed by another, then 10, then hundreds, then thousands. Within hours, an entire beach seethes with turtles, a living carpet of ancient determination. In the most spectacular arabidas, over 100,000 Olive Ridleys may emerge in a single night, transforming miles of coastline into a prehistoric festival of reproduction. The synchronization defies explanation. How do scattered individuals across thousands of square miles of ocean coordinate their arrival to within days, sometimes hours? Scientists believe it involves a combination of lunar cycles, temperature cues, and chemical signals, but the precise mechanism remains one of nature's most beautiful mysteries. Kemp's Ridleys perform similar arrabadas, though on a smaller scale and in a much more restricted range. These smallest of sea turtles nest almost exclusively on a single beach in Mexico, Rancho Nuevo. Their entire species depends on this one stretch of sand, making them perhaps the most vulnerable of all sea turtles. Each of these 7 species represents millions of years of evolutionary experimentation. The leatherback chose flexibility over armor, depth over shallows. The green turtle selected plants over predation, cultivation over competition. The hawksbill found abundance in toxicity, beauty despite danger. The flatback discovered that home waters could provide everything needed for success. The loggerhead developed power to access well-protected prey. The Ridleys mastered synchronization and cooperation. Together, they form a living testament to the power of diversity. 7 different answers to the same fundamental question. 7 different ways to thrive in the ocean's vastness. They remind us that evolution doesn't seek perfection, it seeks adaptation. There is no single right way to be a sea turtle, just as there is no single right way to live on this planet. Tomorrow, We will discover how these magnificent creatures navigate across seemingly empty seas, using senses we're only beginning to understand and following highways invisible to human perception. We will explore the most sophisticated natural GPS system ever discovered, one that makes our technology seem primitive by comparison. But tonight, consider the profound lesson written in these 7 species, that diversity itself is nature's greatest strength, that multiple solutions to life's challenges create resilience that no single approach could achieve. In their differences, we find not competition but complementarity, 7 faces of ancient wisdom, each offering its own irreplaceable gift to the ocean's eternal story. Picture a moment that defies everything we understand about intelligence, memory, and navigation. A baby turtle, no larger than a silver dollar, takes her first breath on a moonlit beach. She has never seen the ocean before, never felt salt water against her shell, never experienced the rhythm of waves. Yet, within hours of hatching, she will embark on a journey that would challenge our most sophisticated navigation systems, guided not by instruments or maps, but by Earth's own invisible architecture. This hatchling carries within her brain the most remarkable natural GPS ever discovered. She will read magnetic fields like road signs, interpret chemical signatures like a sommelier tastes wine, and remember locations with precision that humbles our technology. Over the next 2 decades, she may travel 50,000 miles through seemingly empty seas, only to return to nest within yards of the very spot where she first emerged, a beach she last touched as a creature the size of a cookie. How is such navigation possible? For centuries, this question haunted naturalists and scientists. The ocean appears uniform, featureless, offering no obvious landmarks to guide wandering creatures. Yet sea turtles consistently find their way across vast distances with accuracy that early researchers dismissed as impossible. The answer, when it finally emerged from decades of ingenious research, revealed sensory capabilities that expand our very definition of perception. The journey of discovery began in marine laboratories, where scientists created artificial worlds to test impossible theories. Dr. Kenneth Lohman, at the University of North Carolina, constructed a revolutionary experiment, a pool surrounded by magnetic coils capable of recreating Earth's magnetic field at any location on the planet. Into this artificial ocean, he placed baby loggerhead turtles fresh from their natal beaches. What happened next challenged everything we thought we knew about animal navigation. When the magnetic coils replicated the field signature of the Western Atlantic, the hatchlings swam east. When the field matched the Eastern Atlantic, they swam west. These 2-day-old creatures, with no previous experience of the ocean, were responding to magnetic information as if reading an invisible map. But the true revelation came when researchers varied the magnetic intensity and angle. Earth's magnetic field isn't uniform, it changes predictably with latitude and longitude, creating a unique magnetic signature for every location on the planet. The baby turtles weren't just sensing magnetism, they were interpreting it with sophisticated precision. Magnetic intensity tells them their latitude, how far north or south they've traveled. The angle at which magnetic field lines intersect the Earth's surface reveals their position east or west. Together, these measurements create a coordinate system more precise than any early human navigation tool. A turtle's brain processes this information continuously, maintaining an internal map of her position that updates with every mile traveled. Consider what this means for a creature beginning life's greatest adventure. As she swims away from her natal beach, riding the currents that will carry her into the open ocean, she's not simply drifting. She's recording every twist of current, every change in knot, magnetic signature. Every subtle shift in the ocean's character becomes part of an internal map that will guide her for decades. But magnetism represents only one layer of a navigation system so complex it makes our satellite networks seem crude by comparison. Sea turtles also read the ocean's chemical signatures in visible highways of scent that crisscross the seas like aerial trade routes. Each ocean current carries its own chemical fingerprint. Water that originates in the Arctic carries different dissolved minerals than water from tropical sources. Currents that pass near continents pick up runoff, containing unique combinations of elements and organic compounds. Rivers discharge distinctive chemical signatures that can be detected hundreds of miles offshore. The ocean, which appears uniform to our senses, reveals itself to turtles as a complex landscape of invisible rivers, each flowing with its own chemical identity. Dr. Jeanette Weineken's research revealed that sea turtles possess olfactory capabilities that dwarf our own. Their specialized chemical receptors can detect concentrations measured in parts per billion, equivalent to sensing a single drop of water in an Olympic-sized swimming pool. They taste the ocean continuously, sampling water through specialized ducts in their mouths and nostrils, building a chemical map of their surroundings that guides them across featureless seas. But perhaps the most extraordinary discovery involves wave patterns, the ocean's hidden geometry. Waves don't simply rise and fall randomly. They reflect off continents, creating interference patterns that experienced navigators can read like fingerprints. Waves approaching from different directions intersect at predictable angles, creating complex geometries that reveal information about distant shorelines. Sea turtles appear to sense these wave patterns through specialized cells in their inner ears, and possibly through their shells themselves. They feel the ocean's subtle rhythms, interpreting the musical mathematics of wave interference to determine their position relative to distant landmasses. A turtle swimming in the middle of the Pacific can sense wave patterns bouncing off the coast of California, 2,000 miles away. The navigation system becomes even more remarkable when we consider memory. A turtle doesn't simply follow magnetic highways, she remembers them. The beach where she hatched carries a unique magnetic signature that becomes permanently imprinted in her brain. 25 years later, swimming in waters 3,000 miles from her birthplace, she can still recall that precise magnetic fingerprint. This phenomenon, called natal homing, defies our understanding of animal memory. Imagine remembering the exact combination of sights, sounds, and smells from your very first day of life, then using that memory to navigate home after decades of absence. Yet sea turtles accomplish precisely this feat, returning to nest on beaches they haven't seen since they were hatchlings. The research documenting these incredible journeys reads like science fiction. In 2007, Dr. Scott Benson and his team attached a satellite transmitter to a leatherback turtle in Indonesian waters. Over the following months, they watched in amazement as she traveled from Indonesia to Oregon, a journey of 12,700 miles. More remarkable than the distance was her precision. She maintained an almost perfectly straight course across the entire Pacific Ocean, deviating only to feed or avoid obstacles. This wasn't random wandering or following ocean currents. This was deliberate navigation across the largest ocean on Earth, executed with precision that our best technology struggles to match. She somehow knew exactly where she was going and took the most direct route possible. Similar tracking studies have revealed migration patterns that humble our understanding of animal intelligence. Green turtles, nesting in Costa Rica, travel to feeding grounds off the coasts of Ecuador and Peru, a journey of over 2,000 miles through open ocean. Hawksbills from nesting beaches in the Caribbean spread across the entire western Atlantic, some traveling as far as the coast of Africa. Each species maintains its own network of migration routes, like airlines operating invisible flight paths across the world's oceans. But navigation involves more than reaching destinations. It requires timing. Sea turtles don't simply wander until they find food or mates. They arrive at specific locations at optimal times, coordinating their movements with seasonal patterns of prey abundance, favorable currents, and reproductive cycles. Olive Ridley turtles demonstrate this temporal precision through their extraordinary arybidars. Thousands of individuals, scattered across hundreds of thousands of square miles of ocean, somehow coordinate their arrival at nesting beaches to within days, sometimes hours. They respond to combinations of lunar cycles, water temperature, and chemical cues we're only beginning to understand. Recent research has revealed yet another layer to this navigation mystery: social communication. Sea turtles were long thought to be solitary creatures, but new evidence suggests they may share navigation information. Dr. Rebecca Scott's research using acoustic tags revealed that juvenile turtles often travel in loose groups, maintaining contact through low-frequency vocalizations that can travel for miles underwater. These social networks may function like ancient trade routes, with experienced navigators leading younger turtles along established pathways. Knowledge accumulated over lifetimes gets passed between generations, creating cultural transmission of navigation wisdom that spans decades. The implications extend far beyond turtle biology. Understanding how sea turtles navigate has revolutionized our approach to conservation. Traditional protection efforts focused on nesting beaches, but navigation research revealed that turtles require entire ocean basins to complete their life cycles. A turtle that nests in Florida may spend decades feeding in waters off South America. Protecting her requires international cooperation across multiple countries and jurisdictions. Scientists now map turtle migration routes to identify critical habitats that require protection. They work with fishing industries to modify gear that reduces turtle captures in areas where migration routes intersect commercial operations. They collaborate with governments to establish marine protected areas that encompass feeding grounds, mating areas, and migration corridors. Perhaps most remarkably, navigation research has revealed the profound vulnerability of these ancient systems to modern changes. Sea turtles evolved their navigation abilities over millions of years, assuming that Earth's magnetic field, ocean chemistry, and wave patterns would remain relatively stable. Climate change, pollution, and human development now disrupt these ancient highways. Rising ocean temperatures alter current patterns that have guided turtles for millennia. Chemical pollution masks the natural scents that serve as navigation beacons. Coastal development eliminates the distinctive magnetic signatures of natal beaches. Artificial lights confuse hatchlings that evolved to navigate using the moon's reflection on water. Yet understanding these challenges also reveals solutions. Scientists now work to restore natural magnetic signatures to developed beaches. They design sea turtle-friendly lighting that maintains navigation cues while serving human needs. They track pollution sources that interfere with chemical navigation and work to reduce their impact. The story of sea turtle navigation reminds us that intelligence takes many forms. These creatures possess sensory capabilities we're only beginning to understand and navigate, using systems more sophisticated than our technology. They prove that wisdom doesn't require complexity. Sometimes the most elegant solutions emerge from patient observation of natural patterns. Tomorrow, we will explore the remarkable adaptations hidden beneath their shells, the physiological marvels that allow these air-breathing reptiles to thrive in an underwater world. We will discover how they solve the fundamental challenges of ocean life through engineering solutions that inspire our most advanced technologies. But tonight, as you consider the vast emptiness of the world's oceans, remember that what appears featureless to us reveals itself as a complex landscape to creatures with the proper senses. The sea turtles swimming through tonight's waters follow highways as real and reliable as any road you've traveled invisible to us, but perfectly clear to navigators who learned to read the ocean's secret language millions of years before humans first ventured beyond sight of land. Beneath the ancient curves of every sea turtle's shell lies a masterpiece of biological engineering that would humble our most advanced technology. To understand these hidden marvels, we must journey into the secret world of underwater physiology, a realm where the impossible becomes routine, where air-breathing reptiles have learned to outperform creatures born to the sea. Imagine descending with a leatherback turtle as she begins her daily hunt. At the surface, she appears almost clumsy, a massive, lumbering creature designed for a different world. But watch her transform as she tips forward and begins her descent. Suddenly, grace emerges from seeming awkwardness. Her massive flippers, so ungainly on land, become wings that propel her through liquid space with startling elegance. 100 feet down, the water pressure doubles. 200 feet down, it quadruples. At 500 feet, the pressure reaches 15 times what she experienced at the surface, enough to crush most air-breathing creatures. Yet, she continues diving, her body undergoing transformations that redefine what we thought possible for a reptile. Her ribs, those fundamental supports of terrestrial life, begin their extraordinary performance. Unlike the rigid bones that support land animals, her ribs possess a flexibility that seems to violate physical laws. As pressure increases, they fold inward like the ribs of a closing umbrella. Her entire chest cavity compresses, allowing her lungs to shrink to a fraction of their surface size. At 1,000 feet, her lungs have collapsed to the size of oranges. At 2,000 feet, they compress further still. The air within them reaches pressures that would cause nitrogen narcosis in human divers, a condition that leads to confusion, loss of coordination, and potentially fatal decision-making. Yet specialized proteins in her bloodstream bind with nitrogen molecules, preventing them from affecting her nervous system. She has evolved her own biological recompression chamber. But the true marvel occurs within her cardiovascular system. As she dives deeper, her heart rate drops from 25 beats per minute to just 1. This isn't stress or malfunction, this is precision engineering. Her body redirects blood flow away from non-essential organs, concentrating oxygen only where it's desperately needed. Her brain, her heart, her swimming muscles. Her kidneys temporarily shut down. Her digestive system suspends operation. Even her liver reduces function to minimal levels. She becomes a living submarine, operating only essential systems while conserving precious oxygen for the marathon ahead. This isn't simply holding her breath, this is completely reimagining how life functions underwater. At 4,000 feet, she enters a realm where pressure reaches 120 times surface levels. The weight of water above her would implode most human-built vessels, yet she continues hunting in this crushing environment. Her flexible shell design distributes pressure evenly across her entire body. Rather than resisting the ocean's force, she yields to it, becoming smaller and denser while maintaining structural integrity. The temperature at these depths hovers just above freezing, yet she maintains her core body temperature through an extraordinary adaptation. Her massive front flippers contain a counter-current heat exchange system. Warm arterial blood flowing to her extremities passes directly alongside cold venous blood returning to her heart. Heat transfers from outgoing to incoming blood, ensuring that no warmth escapes to the cold ocean depths. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of her deep-diving physiology involves oxygen storage. While human lungs store only a small percentage of our body's oxygen reserves, sea turtles have revolutionized this system. Their blood contains much higher concentrations of oxygen-carrying cells. Their muscles store oxygen in specialized proteins called myoglobin, the same adaptation that allows seals and whales to dive to extraordinary depths. More surprisingly, they appear to engage in limited anaerobic respiration, generating energy without oxygen, like sprint athletes pushing beyond their aerobic limits. They can sustain this oxygen debt metabolism for extended periods, then rapidly recover when they return to the surface. Their entire physiology operates like a perfectly tuned race car, squeezing maximum performance from minimal resources. Yet diving represents only one aspect of their physiological marvels. Even more extraordinary are the adaptations that allow them to thrive in a medium that should poison them: saltwater. Every sip of seawater contains enough salt to dehydrate a land animal, yet sea turtles live their entire lives surrounded by this liquid that would kill most terrestrial creatures. The solution lies behind their eyes, specialized salt glands that function as biological desalination plants. These remarkable organs work continuously, filtering excess salt from their bloodstream and concentrating it into a solution twice as salty as the ocean itself. They literally cry tears of concentrated brine, expelling the deadly mineral that would otherwise accumulate in their tissues. Watch a sea turtle surface after a deep dive, and you'll witness this extraordinary adaptation in action. Clear fluid streams from her eyes, not tears of emotion, but the overflow from her biological salt refineries. Each teardrop represents a triumph over one of the ocean's cruelest paradoxes. Surrounded by water, yet constantly threatened by dehydration, their shells, those iconic symbols of turtle existence, reveal another layer of physiological sophistication. Far from simple armor, these structures function as living bone covered with plates that feel every touch, detect vibrations through water, and provide sensory information about their environment. They can sense the approach of predators through shell vibrations, feel the texture of the seafloor beneath them, and even detect changes in water pressure that signal approaching storms. More remarkably, their shells never stop growing. Unlike human bones that reach adult size and maintain that structure, sea turtle shells continue adding layers throughout their lives. A century-old loggerhead carries within her shell a living record of decades spent wandering the seas, growth rings that record years of abundance and scarcity, warm seasons and cold, times of plenty and periods of struggle. This continuous growth means that sea turtles never truly reach a final adult size. Given sufficient time and resources, they continue expanding throughout their lives. The largest specimens ever recorded were likely the oldest individuals that had accumulated decades or even centuries of growth. They become living time capsules, their shells encoding the history of their oceanic wanderings. Temperature control reveals yet another physiological marvel. Unlike mammals and birds that maintain constant body temperatures, sea turtles are ectothermic. Their internal temperature fluctuates with their environment, but they've evolved sophisticated behavioral thermoregulation that allows them to function across a remarkable range of conditions. In cold waters, they can slow their metabolism dramatically, entering a state resembling hibernation while remaining active. They position themselves in thermal layers within the water column, seeking warmer pockets that allow optimal function. Some species migrate thousands of miles to follow specific temperature ranges, creating annual patterns that have persisted for millions of years. Their reproductive physiology demonstrates perhaps the most critical temperature adaptation of all. Sex determination in sea turtles depends entirely on incubation temperature, a system that initially seems fragile but has proven remarkably successful over evolutionary time. Eggs incubated below 79 degrees Fahrenheit develop into males. Above 86 degrees, they become females. Within that narrow 7-degree window, both sexes develop in roughly equal proportions. This temperature-dependent sex determination allows populations to adjust their sex ratios in response to environmental conditions. During cooler periods, more males are produced. Warmer periods favor females. Over time, populations maintain the balance necessary for successful reproduction while adapting to changing climatic conditions. But this ancient system now faces unprecedented challenges. As beaches warm due to climate change, many populations produce predominantly females, sometimes over 90%. The system that allowed flexibility over millions of years may lack the speed necessary to adapt to rapid modern warming. Their digestive systems reveal adaptations as diverse as their diets. Leatherbacks that feed on jellyfish possess throats lined with backward-pointing spines that ensure their gelatinous prey can only travel in one direction. Green turtles that browse on seagrass have developed incredibly long intestines, sometimes 20 times their body length necessary for extracting nutrition from fibrous plant material. Hawksbills that feed on toxic sponges possess specialized liver enzymes that neutralize compounds lethal to other creatures. They essentially detoxify their food, converting poisonous reef organisms into safe nutrition. Their digestive chemistry operates like a sophisticated laboratory, breaking down complex toxins that would devastate other marine animals. Even more remarkable is their ability to fast for extended periods. During long migrations or when environmental conditions make feeding difficult, sea turtles can survive for months without eating. Their metabolism slows dramatically, and they mobilize fat reserves stored throughout their bodies. They become living examples of efficient energy management, stretching limited resources across thousands of miles of travel. Their sensory systems extend far beyond the navigation capabilities we explored earlier. They possess extraordinarily sensitive hearing, detecting low-frequency sounds that travel vast distances underwater. They may use these acoustic signals to locate feeding areas, avoid predators, or maintain contact with other turtles across the ocean's vastness. Their vision adapts to both aerial and aquatic environments. Above water, they focus on distant objects, scanning horizons for landmarks or potential threats. Underwater, their vision shifts to near-field clarity, allowing them to identify prey, navigate complex reef systems, and detect subtle changes in their surroundings. They essentially possess dual-mode vision systems that optimize for radically different environments. Perhaps most mysterious are their magnetic sensory capabilities. Recent research suggests they possess magnetite crystals in their brains, tiny biological compasses that allow them to sense Earth's magnetic field with extraordinary precision. These crystals may function like living GPS receivers, providing continuous information about their location and heading that supplements their other navigation systems. The integration of all these physiological systems creates capabilities that seem almost supernatural. A sea turtle can dive to crushing depths while maintaining perfect navigation, process toxic foods while extracting maximum nutrition, regulate body temperature across vast environmental ranges, and store enough energy to travel thousands of miles without feeding. They represent the pinnacle of biological ocean adaptation, living proof that life finds ways to thrive in the most challenging environments. Tomorrow, we will discover how these magnificent creatures serve as gardeners and architects of ocean ecosystems, creating and maintaining underwater worlds that support countless other species. We will explore the intricate relationships that make sea turtles essential to the health of our planet's marine environments. But tonight, marvel at the extraordinary engineering hidden beneath those ancient shells. Every sea turtle swimming through tonight's waters carries within her body solutions to challenges that still perplex our best scientists and engineers. They remind us that evolution's patient experimentation often produces innovations that surpass anything. The human ingenuity has yet achieved living masterpieces of biological design, perfected over millions of years in the ocean's demanding laboratory. In the crystal-clear waters of the Caribbean, something extraordinary unfolds that challenges everything we once believed about marine ecosystems. A green turtle, ancient and patient, tends her underwater garden with the precision of a master gardener. She has maintained this same plot of seagrass for over 2 decades, cropping each blade to optimal length, preventing overgrowth, and creating conditions that support an astonishing diversity of life. This is not simply feeding, this is cultivation. And it reveals sea turtles as something far more significant than wandering ocean nomads. They are ecosystem engineers, living bridges that connect distant habitats, and keystone species whose presence determines the health of entire marine communities. Remove them from the equation, and underwater worlds that took millennia to develop can collapse within years. Watch the green turtle work her underwater meadow. Each bite is deliberate, calculated. She crops the seagrass blades to precisely the right height, short enough to stimulate new growth, long enough to maintain the root systems that anchor this entire ecosystem. Her grazing creates a patchwork of different grass heights, each supporting different communities of small creatures. The mathematics of her impact stagger the imagination. 1 acre of turtle-maintained seagrass supports 40,000 fish and 50 million small invertebrates. These aren't random numbers, they represent the carrying capacity of a perfectly managed underwater prairie. The turtle's selective grazing creates the ideal conditions for maximum biodiversity, turning what could be a simple monoculture into a complex, multi-layered ecosystem. But remove the turtle and witness ecological collapse in action. Without her careful management, the seagrass grows tall and dense. Sediment trapped by overgrown blades begins to accumulate between the grass stems. Light can no longer penetrate to the seafloor. The root systems, deprived of photosynthesis, begin to weaken and die. Fish lose their nursery habitat. Invertebrates disappear. Within 2 years, a thriving underwater meadow transforms into barren sand. Scientists studying these relationships discovered something that fundamentally changed our understanding of marine ecology. Green turtles don't randomly graze across seagrass beds. They maintain specific territories, returning to the same plots year after year. Each turtle becomes responsible for managing several acres of seafloor, creating what marine biologists now recognize as the ocean's most sophisticated farming system. Dr. Karen Bjorndal's groundbreaking research in the Caribbean revealed the true scale of this agricultural revolution. She documented green turtles maintaining the same grazing plots for over 15 years, with some territories passed between generations of turtles. Younger turtles often establish their territories adjacent to experienced grazers, learning optimal management techniques through observation and practice. The benefits ripple outward, like waves from a stone dropped in still water. Seagrass meadows managed by turtles sequester carbon dioxide at rates that rival terrestrial forests. They filter pollutants from coastal waters, trapping sediments and excess nutrients that would otherwise damage coral reefs. They provide storm protection for shorelines, their root systems binding sand and reducing wave energy during hurricanes. Most remarkably, these underwater prairies serve as nurseries for creatures that spend their adult lives in completely different habitats. Juvenile fish that will eventually inhabit coral reefs begin their lives hidden among turtle-maintained seagrass blades. Sea urchins, lobsters, conch, and countless other species depend on these carefully cultivated meadows for shelter and food during their most vulnerable life stages. But green turtles represent only one example of sea turtles' ecological engineering. Hawksbill turtles perform equally vital maintenance work on coral reefs through their extraordinary diet of toxic sponges. In reef ecosystems, sponges compete directly with corals for space and resources. Left unchecked, fast-growing sponges can overwhelm coral colonies, smothering the polyps that build these underwater cities. Hawksbills serve as the reef's cleanup crew, selectively feeding on sponge species that pose the greatest threat to coral health. Their feeding isn't random. Research has shown they target the most aggressive sponge species first, maintaining a balance that allows both sponges and corals to coexist. A single hawksbill can consume over 1,100 pounds of sponges annually, preventing reef overgrowth that would eliminate habitat for hundreds of other species. Dr. Anne Mylan's decades of research in the Caribbean documented hawksbills returning to the same feeding territories on reefs for over 20 years. Each turtle maintains detailed knowledge of her reef section, knowing which sponges to harvest and which to leave alone. They create sponge gardens as deliberately managed as any terrestrial farm, ensuring sustainable harvests that can continue for decades. The removal of hawksbills from Caribbean reefs in the 20th century created ecological disasters that persist today. Without their selective feeding pressure, aggressive sponge species expanded rapidly, smothering coral colonies and simplifying reef structure. Many reefs that once supported incredible diversity transformed into sponge-dominated communities with a fraction of their former biodiversity. Even more extraordinary are the traveling ecosystems that loggerhead turtles create simply by existing. Each loggerhead serves as a mobile habitat for up to 100 different species of hitchhiking organisms. Specialized barnacles found nowhere else on Earth have evolved to live exclusively on loggerhead shells. These barnacles have developed unique adaptations to underwater life, creating their own miniature reefs on the turtles' carapaces. Small fish follow loggerheads like loyal companions, feeding on parasites and food scraps from the turtles' powerful feeding sessions. Algae, growing on their shells, provide food for small grazers, which in turn attract predators, creating complex food webs centered around individual turtles. Each loggerhead becomes a living island of biodiversity, carrying entire communities across ocean basins. The ecological relationships of the lodder extend to the beaches where sea turtles nest. Every nesting attempt, successful or not, transfers nutrients from ocean to land in ways that terrestrial ecosystems have depended upon for millions of years. Each turtle nest represents approximately 3 pounds of marine-derived nutrients deposited on beaches, nitrogen, phosphorus, and other elements that coastal vegetation cannot obtain from sandy soils alone. Dr. James Hansen's research on nesting beaches revealed that areas where turtles nest support 3 times more plant species than similar beaches without nesting activity. The sand becomes enriched not just by eggs that fail to hatch, but by eggshells, organic matter from the turtles themselves, and nutrients from their periodic beach visits. Some coastal plants have evolved to depend on these periodic nutrient pulses, timing their reproductive cycles to coincide with nesting seasons. Even failed nests serve crucial ecological functions. Eggs that don't develop become feast for ghost crabs, beach insects, and small mammals. These creatures, in turn, disperse nutrients inland and support predator populations that maintain beach ecosystem balance. Birds time their migrations to coincide with hatching seasons, knowing they'll find abundant food resources on turtle nesting beaches. The connections reach even deeper when we consider the role of hatchlings in marine food webs. Of the thousands of hatchlings that enter the ocean each season, many become food for fish, seabirds, and marine mammals. This isn't failure, it's essential energy transfer from terrestrial to marine ecosystems. Hatchlings serve as a crucial link between land and sea, carrying terrestrial nutrients into ocean food webs while providing sustenance for countless marine predators. Recent research has revealed that sea turtles also serve as biological vectors, carrying seeds, nutrients, and even small organisms between distant habitats. Green turtles feeding on seagrass in one location often travel hundreds of miles before depositing nutrient-rich waste in completely different ecosystems. They function as living conveyor belts, redistributing resources across vast oceanic distances. Dr. Nathan Robinson's tracking studies showed green turtles transferring nutrients from highly productive feeding areas to nutrient-poor regions, essentially fertilizing marine deserts with resources from marine oases. This redistribution helps maintain productivity in areas that would otherwise support minimal life, creating stepping stone habitats that connect isolated populations of marine organisms. The discovery of these ecological relationships revolutionized marine conservation approaches. Protecting sea turtles requires more than safeguarding nesting beaches. It demands ecosystem-level thinking that encompasses feeding areas, migration corridors, and the countless species that depend on turtle-maintained habitats. Scientists now map seagrass beds to identify critical feeding areas that require protection. They study sponge-coral relationships on reefs to understand how hawksbill conservation affects entire reef communities. They analyze nutrient flows to recognize beaches where turtle nesting provides essential resources for coastal ecosystems. The implications extend to climate change mitigation. Turtle-maintained seagrass meadows sequester carbon at rates comparable to tropical rainforests. Protecting these underwater prairies could play a significant role in reducing atmospheric carbon dioxide levels. The turtles themselves become climate change allies, their careful management of seagrass beds creating one of the ocean's most effective carbon storage systems. But these ecological relationships also reveal the cascading consequences of sea turtle decline. When turtle populations crash, entire ecosystems unravel. Seagrass beds become overgrown and degraded. Coral reefs become smothered by unchecked sponge growth. Beaches lose their natural nutrient cycling systems. The loss of sea turtles creates ecological debts that compound over decades, diminishing the ocean's ability to support the diversity of life that depends on turtle-maintained habitats. Recovery efforts now focus on restoring not just turtle populations, but the ecological relationships they maintain. Scientists work to rehabilitate degraded seagrass beds by reintroducing green turtle populations. They experiment with mechanical sponge removal on reefs where hawksbills have disappeared. They study the most effective ways to restore nutrient cycling on beaches where turtle nesting has ceased. Perhaps most remarkably, some ecosystems retain the capacity to recover remarkably quickly once turtle populations return. Seagrass beds respond to renewed turtle grazing within months, productivity and diversity increasing as the turtles resume their management activities. Coral reefs show improved health within years of hawksbill population recovery, as renewed sponge control allows coral colonies to expand and thrive. Tomorrow, we will witness the ancient ritual that connects all these ecological relationships, the incredible journey from ocean depths to moonlit beaches, where the next generation begins its own epic adventure. We will experience the drama and vulnerability of nesting, understanding why these moments of terrestrial return remain crucial to the ocean's future. But tonight, consider the profound interconnectedness revealed by sea turtle ecology. These ancient mariners serve as living bridges between distant habitats, patient gardeners of underwater worlds, and essential engineers of marine biodiversity. They remind us that individual species don't exist in isolation. They weave themselves into the fabric of life in ways we're only beginning to understand, creating relationships so fundamental that their loss diminishes the richness of our entire planet. The full moon rises over Playa Grande, Costa Rica, casting silver light across waves that have known this rhythm for millions of years. The beach appears empty, peaceful, unremarkable. But tonight, something extraordinary will unfold, a ceremony so ancient it predates the rise of mammals. So precisely choreographed it has remained unchanged since before flowers bloomed on Earth. In the depths offshore, a massive shape begins her ascent from the oceanic realm she has called home for over 2 decades. She is a green turtle, 500 pounds of accumulated wisdom and maternal purpose, carrying within her body the future of her species. She hasn't touched land since she was a hatchling no bigger than your palm, yet every cell in her body knows exactly where she must go. Listen to her breathing as she surfaces deep, rasping gulps that sound prehistoric, primordial. Her lungs, compressed by years of deep diving, expand fully for the first time in months. She floats at the surface for long minutes, gathering oxygen and courage for the monumental task ahead. Around her, other shapes materialize in the moonlight. She is not alone. This is the night of the Arabada, the arrival. Watch her approach the shore with movements that seem impossible for a creature designed for liquid grace. In the water, she moved like poetry. On land, each step requires tremendous effort. Her flippers, perfect for propelling her through ocean currents, become awkward appendages poorly suited for supporting her massive weight on sand. Yet she persists, driven by instincts more powerful than comfort, more ancient than fear. She pauses at the high tide line, that critical boundary between her oceanic world and the terrestrial realm where her ancestors once lived. This moment represents one of evolution's most remarkable compromises. She must return to land to reproduce, yet everything about her body design makes terrestrial movement exhausting and dangerous. She embodies the profound biological truth that evolution doesn't create perfection. It creates magnificent solutions to impossible problems. The ritual begins with testing. She moves methodically across the beach, rejecting spots that feel wrong, too soft, too hard, too close to the water, too far from the sea. Her flippers probe the sand, her ancient brain processing information about temperature, moisture content, and grain size. She seeks the Goldilocks zone of nesting sites, conditions that will be just right for the precious cargo she carries. Temperature matters more than almost anything else. Too cool, and her eggs will develop into males. Too warm, and they become females. She needs a location where sand temperature hovers around 82 degrees Fahrenheit, the narrow window that produces balanced clutches of both sexes. Her choice of nesting site will determine not just the survival of her offspring, but their very gender. Finally, she finds the perfect spot. The digging begins one of nature's most exhausting construction projects. Her rear flippers become precision excavators, alternating scoops that gradually carve a flask-shaped cavity in the sand. Each movement removes exactly the right amount of sand. Never too much, never too little. The process requires over 2 hours of continuous labor that would exhaust a human in minutes. Watch the physics of her excavation technique. She doesn't simply dig straight down that would create a narrow hole vulnerable to collapse. Instead, she creates a chamber with precise dimensions, narrow at the top to prevent sand from falling in during egg laying, wider at the bottom to accommodate her clutch, with walls angled just enough to remain stable throughout the incubation period. This is architecture encoded in genes, blueprint knowledge passed down through millions of years of successful reproduction. 2 feet down, she stops. The temperature is perfect. The sand consistency ideal. The depth provides protection from surface temperature fluctuations while remaining shallow enough for hatchlings to dig their way out. She has created the perfect nursery without tools, without training, guided only by instructions written in her DNA. Now comes the moment that justifies her entire existence. One by one, ping-pong ball-sized eggs drop into the cavity, each one a package of possibility, a lottery ticket in evolution's great gamble. She will lay approximately 120 eggs tonight, each representing 20 years of oceanic wandering, of surviving storms and predators, of accumulating the energy necessary for this single reproductive event. Each egg falls with a soft sound that seems almost musical in the nighttime quiet. She pauses between eggs, her breathing deep and labored, her body channeling every reserve of energy into this ultimate maternal act. Some eggs are larger than others, the larger ones typically producing female hatchlings, the smaller ones males. Even within a single clutch, she hedges her evolutionary bets. The final egg deposited, she begins the delicate work of concealment. Her rear flippers become gentle tools, carefully covering the precious clutch with sand. But this isn't simply filling a hole, this is sophisticated camouflage. She throws sand far beyond the actual nest site, creating multiple disturbance patterns that will confuse predators seeking her eggs. She knows that coatis, dogs, and humans will search for her nest, and she deploys countermeasures that would impress military strategists. Her camouflage complete, she begins the exhausting journey back to the sea. Each step costs enormous energy, but she cannot rest until she reaches the safety of deep water. Dawn approaches, and with it, dangers she has avoided by timing her nesting to darkness. Beach dogs, coastal birds, and human activity all increase with daylight. She must complete her mission and return to her element before the sun reveals her vulnerability. As she disappears beneath the waves, her work appears finished. But in reality, it has only begun. Buried 2 feet beneath the sand, 120 small universes begin their development. Each egg contains everything necessary to create a creature capable of oceanic navigation, deep-sea diving, and surviving in environments that would kill most vertebrates. The genetic instructions for manufacturing this biological miracle fit within a space smaller than a ping-pong ball. Temperature becomes the primary architect of development. The warmth of tropical sand drives embryonic growth at precisely calibrated rates. Too hot, and development races ahead of critical organ formation. Too cool, and growth slows to dangerous levels that invite bacterial infection. The sand around the nest must maintain steady temperatures for exactly 55 to 70 days. A thermal consistency that can be disrupted by climate change, beach development, or even human foot traffic compacting the sand. But temperature does more than control development speed. It determines the fundamental question of identity. In mammals, sex chromosomes determine gender before birth. In sea turtles, temperature makes this crucial decision. Below 29 degrees Celsius, embryos develop male characteristics. Above 29.4 degrees, they become female. Within that narrow half-degree window, both sexes develop in roughly equal proportions. This temperature-dependent sex determination allowed sea turtle populations to adapt to changing climates over evolutionary time. During ice ages, cooler beaches produced more males. Warmer interglacial periods favored females. The system provided flexibility that helped species survive dramatic environmental changes throughout their evolutionary history. 8 weeks pass in the darkness beneath the sand. Inside each egg, a miracle of development unfolds. A tiny mass of cells transforms into a perfect miniature turtle, complete with navigation systems that will guide it across ocean basins, diving adaptations that will carry it to crushing depths, and salt glands that will allow it to drink seawater throughout its life. All of this biological sophistication develops from a single fertilized cell guided by genetic instructions refined over 150 million years. Then comes the moment that determines survival, the synchronized emergence. Hatchlings don't emerge individually. They emerge together, their collective digging creating upward momentum that helps all siblings reach the surface. This cooperation begins before they even see daylight, demonstrating that social behavior in sea turtles extends to their earliest moments of life. They wait just below the sand surface, their internal thermometers measuring temperature changes that announce nightfall. When sand temperature drops several degrees, indicating the sun has set, they erupt from their underground nursery in a frenzy of tiny flippers and determination. This is the boil, one of nature's most dramatic birth scenes. The dash to the sea becomes a desperate race against time and predators. Ghost crabs emerge from their burrows, attracted by the movement. Frigate birds and gulls gather to feast on the bounty. Beach dogs patrol the shoreline. The hatchlings have perhaps 2 minutes to reach the safety of waves, 2 minutes to cover ground that seems vast to creatures smaller than cookies. They navigate using the brightest horizon, traditionally the moon's reflection on water, now sometimes confused by beachfront development. Those that choose correctly reach the waves and immediately dive, beginning a 72-hour swimming marathon that will carry them to offshore currents. Those that choose wrong become meals for waiting predators, or exhaust themselves crawling toward artificial lights. The successful hatchlings enter the ocean carrying no experience, no learned behaviors, no parental guidance. Yet they immediately begin one of the animal kingdom's most remarkable journeys. They swim continuously for 3 days, powered by energy, stored in yolk sacs that sustain them until they reach the floating ecosystems of offshore currents. Here begins the lost years, a period of oceanic wandering that has only recently yielded its secrets to science. Young sea turtles spend their first decade or more drifting with current systems, feeding on floating organisms, growing slowly but steadily. They become part of the ocean's plankton community, living jewels scattered across thousands of miles of open water. Dr. Kate Mansfield's groundbreaking research using tiny satellite transmitters revealed where these lost years are spent. Young loggerheads from Florida beaches travel thousands of miles across the Atlantic, riding the Gulf Stream to European waters before eventually returning to American coasts as adults. They complete a transatlantic figure-8 migration that takes decades to complete. During these years, they face predation rates that challenge imagination. Of the 120 hatchlings that emerged from our green turtle's nest, perhaps 1 or 2 will survive to reproductive age. The ocean exacts a brutal toll, but those few survivors carry genetic traits that allowed them to navigate countless dangers. They become the breeding stock for future generations, living proof that survival of the fittest operates even in the vast emptiness of open ocean. The remarkable cycle comes full circle when surviving females return to their natal beaches 20 to 30 years later. Somehow, despite decades spent thousands of miles away, they recognize the magnetic signature of their birth beaches. They return to nest within miles, sometimes within yards, of where they first entered the ocean. This natal homing completes one of nature's most extraordinary circles. The beach that witnessed our green turtle's emergence 25 years ago will likely witness her daughter's return a quarter-century hence. The ritual perpetuates itself across geological timescales, connecting past and future through the thin thread of successful reproduction. But this ancient ceremony now faces unprecedented challenges. Coastal development eliminates nesting beaches at rates that alarm conservationists. Artificial lighting confuses hatchlings that evolved to navigate by moon and starlight. Climate change pushes sand temperatures beyond the range that produces balanced sex ratios. Plastic pollution creates new hazards for young turtles beginning their oceanic journeys. Yet understanding these threats also reveals solutions. Communities worldwide transform from turtle egg collectors to turtle protectors, recognizing that sustainable ecotourism provides greater economic benefits than short-term exploitation. Lighting ordinances reduce navigation confusion for hatchlings. Beach renourishment projects restore nesting habitat. Nest relocation programs move eggs from vulnerable areas to safer locations. Tomorrow, we will explore how science and technology race to understand and protect these ancient mariners before it's too late. We will discover how researchers decode turtle secrets and how communities worldwide unite to ensure that future generations will witness the moonlit ritual we experience tonight. But as this night of ancient ceremony concludes, consider the profound vulnerability hidden within one of nature's most successful reproductive strategies. Every sea turtle swimming in tonight's oceans represents a victory against almost impossible odds, a survivor of the most challenging childhood in the animal kingdom. They carry within their shells the living memory of a ritual that has continued unbroken since the age of dinosaurs, proof that some ceremonies are too important to abandon, too beautiful to lose, too connected to our planet's future to permit their disappearance. In laboratories and field stations across the globe, an urgent race unfolds against time itself. Scientists work with desperate intensity to decode the remaining mysteries of sea turtle. Biology before human activities drive these ancient mariners toward extinction. Their research has become a rescue mission, an attempt to understand creatures that survived the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs, only to face their greatest challenge in the form of plastic pollution, climate change, and disappearing beaches. The story of the Kemp's Ridley turtle embodies both the darkest chapter of sea turtle conservation and its most inspiring triumph. In the 1940s, massive arabiadas brought millions of these smallest sea turtles to a single beach at Rancho Nuevo, Mexico. Aerial footage from that era shows the beach literally carpeted with nesting females, so many turtles that observers described walking across their shells from dune to water's edge. By 1985, the Kemp's Ridley population had collapsed to just 200 nesting females worldwide. The entire species balanced on the precipice of extinction, victims of egg collection, beach development, and massive mortality in fishing nets. At their lowest point, fewer Kemp's Ridleys existed than giant pandas, yet the world paid little attention to their desperate plight. What followed became legendary in conservation circles. Operation Head Start, perhaps the most ambitious marine reptile rescue ever attempted. Armed guards protected the single remaining nesting beach 24 hours a day, Biologists collected every egg before predators or poachers could find them. Researchers relocated thousands of eggs to establish backup populations on Texas beaches. Most dramatically, they raised thousands of hatchlings in captive facilities before releasing them as juveniles, better equipped to survive ocean dangers. Dr. Donna Shaver, who has dedicated her entire career to Kemp's Ridley recovery, recalls the desperate early days when every single turtle mattered. "We knew the exact location of nearly every adult female," she explains. Each one had a name, a personality, a critical role in species survival. The population was so small that losing a single breeding female to fishing gear or boat strike could reduce the species' reproductive potential by measurable percentages. The intervention worked. Today, over 5,000 female Kemp's Ridleys nest annually, still endangered, but no longer sliding inexorably toward extinction. The population growth demonstrates that intensive conservation efforts can succeed even when species approach the point of no return. But the Kemp's Ridley recovery also reveals the enormous effort required to save a single species effort that must now be replicated for sea turtle populations worldwide. Technology transforms conservation possibilities daily. Satellite transmitters the size of smartphones now reveal migration routes that were complete mysteries just decades ago. Dr. Scott Benson's Pacific Leatherback project has tracked these giants across entire ocean basins, discovering feeding areas in unexpected locations and revealing threats that occur thousands of miles from nesting beaches. One tracked leatherback swam from nesting beaches in Costa Rica to feeding areas off the coast of Chile, a journey of 4,000 miles through waters where fishing fleets deploy millions of hooks annually. Another traveled from Indonesia to Oregon, navigating shipping lanes that contain some of the world's busiest maritime traffic. These discoveries revolutionized conservation thinking. Protecting sea turtles requires international cooperation across entire ocean basins. The tracking data reveals heartbreaking near misses with disaster. Researchers watch on computer screens as tracked turtles approach fishing fleets, nuclear power plant intakes, or shipping lanes. Sometimes the signals simply stop equipment failure or turtle mortality, impossible to distinguish. Each lost signal represents not just data, but the possible loss of an individual that may have taken decades to reach reproductive maturity. But technology also provides solutions. LED lights attached to fishing nets reduce turtle captures by 90%, a simple innovation that saves thousands of turtles annually. These lights exploit a quirk of turtle vision that makes them avoid certain wavelengths while not deterring target fish species. What began as basic research into turtle sensory biology has become one of conservation's most cost-effective interventions. Temperature loggers buried in nests provide real-time data about incubation conditions as beaches warm due to climate change. This information guides crucial decisions about shade structures, nest relocation, and beach management. Some beaches now produce over 90% female hatchlings due to rising sand temperatures, a skewed sex ratio that threatens long-term population sustainability. Conservationists race to develop techniques for cooling critical nesting areas before gender imbalances become irreversible. Perhaps most promising are experiments with magnetic fields that exploit turtles' navigation abilities for conservation purposes. Researchers test magnetic barriers around fishing areas and power plant intakes, using the turtles' own sensory systems to guide them away from danger. Early results suggest that artificial magnetic fields can redirect turtle movements without interfering with their natural navigation or migration patterns. Dr. Nathan Putman's research into magnetic navigation has revealed possibilities that sound like science fiction. By generating specific magnetic signatures, conservationists may eventually guide turtles toward protected areas or away from threats. The same sensory system that allows turtles to navigate across ocean basins could become a tool for their protection. Biology-based solutions that work with, rather than against, Evolutionary adaptations refined over millions of years. Community-based conservation represents another front in the race against time. In fishing villages from Malaysia to Mexico, former turtle hunters become protectors when they discover that live turtles attract more economic value through ecotourism than dead ones in soup pots. Dr. Patricia Huerta's work in Mexico demonstrates how communities can transition from exploitation to protection when provided with economic alternatives and education about turtle biology. In the village of Ostional, Costa Rica, residents have developed perhaps the most sophisticated community-based turtle conservation program in the world. They harvest eggs from arrabada nests that would naturally be destroyed by later arriving turtles, selling them legally while protecting the majority of clutches. This sustainable use model provides income for local families while maintaining the arrabada phenomenon that makes the beach unique. The Ostional project required decades of research to understand arrabada ecology and determine sustainable harvest levels. Scientists discovered that olive ridley arrabadas produce so many nests that late-arriving females often destroy earlier nests while digging their own. Strategic egg collection during the first days of an arrabada can actually increase overall reproductive success by reducing nest destruction. Local residents become scientific partners, monitoring nesting patterns and adjusting harvest quotas based on population data. Genetic analysis has revolutionized understanding of sea turtle populations, revealing connections between distant rookeries and feeding areas that were previously unknown. Dr. Peter Dutton's genetic studies showed that hawksbills nesting in different Caribbean countries often feed on the same coral reefs, meaning that protection efforts must coordinate across multiple national jurisdictions to be effective. The genetic work also reveals population bottlenecks, places in space and time where species numbers drop to dangerously low levels. Most sea turtle populations show evidence of severe bottlenecks within the last few centuries, often coinciding with human colonization of nesting beaches. Recovery from these genetic bottlenecks takes much longer than simple population number recovery, sometimes requiring centuries for genetic diversity to return to healthy levels. Captive breeding programs now serve as genetic reservoirs for the most endangered populations. The Proyecto Tamar in Brazil maintains breeding facilities for 5 sea turtle species, ensuring that genetic material from critically endangered populations doesn't disappear forever. These programs don't aim to replace wild populations but to provide backup genetic diversity that can be reintroduced if wild populations crash further. Artificial intelligence now assists in turtle monitoring efforts that would be impossible for human observers alone. Machine learning algorithms analyze satellite imagery to identify turtle tracks on remote beaches, count nesting females, and monitor hatch success rates across hundreds of rookeries simultaneously. Drones equipped with thermal cameras detect nesting females at night without disturbing their reproductive behavior. Underwater cameras with automated recognition software count turtles at feeding areas too distant or dangerous for human divers. But perhaps the most critical conservation frontier involves addressing the root causes of turtle decline, the human activities that threaten entire ocean ecosystems. Plastic pollution has emerged as an unexpected turtle killer, with post-mortem examinations revealing stomachs packed with bags, bottles, and microplastics that prevent normal feeding and digestion. Young turtles, in particular, seem attracted to floating plastic debris that resembles their natural food sources. Dr. Christine Figener's viral video of a sea turtle with a plastic straw embedded in its nostril and galvanized public attention on plastic pollution in ways that scientific papers never could. The image of a magnificent creature suffering from human carelessness sparked global movements to reduce single-use plastics and improve waste management in coastal communities. Climate change presents the most complex challenge, affecting every aspect of turtle biology from sex ratios to food availability. Rising sea levels threaten nesting beaches worldwide, while changing ocean currents disrupt migration routes established over millions of years. Coral reef bleaching events eliminate hawksbill feeding areas, forcing these specialized feeders to travel greater distances for increasingly scarce food sources. Yet some turtle populations show remarkable resilience to environmental changes. Leatherback turtles, with their global distribution and flexible feeding habits, may actually benefit from climate-driven changes in jellyfish abundance. Green turtle populations that feed on seagrass beds appear capable of shifting to new areas as ocean conditions change. These adaptable populations provide hope that sea turtles' evolutionary flexibility may help them survive modern challenges, as it helped them survive mass extinctions in the past. Education emerges as perhaps the most powerful conservation tool. When people understand turtle biology, their incredible migrations, their ecological importance, their vulnerability during reproduction, they become passionate advocates for protection. School programs that bring students to see nesting beaches create lifelong conservationists. Ecotourism that funds protection efforts while providing economic incentives for conservation creates sustainable solutions to environmental challenges. The next generation of sea turtle biologists comes from communities worldwide, including many from countries where turtles nest. Dr. Didier Chacon from Costa Rica, Dr. Manjula Tiwari from India, and Dr. Mariana Fuentes from Australia represent a new international network of turtle researchers who understand both the science and the cultural context necessary for effective conservation. Perhaps most importantly, conservation efforts now focus on ecosystem-level protection rather than single-species approaches. Marine protected areas encompass entire turtle habitats, from nesting beaches to feeding areas to migration corridors. International agreements like the Inter-American Convention for the Protection and Conservation of Sea Turtles create frameworks for coordinated protection efforts that match the geographic scale of turtle migrations. The race against time continues with increasing urgency. Every month brings new threats from deep-sea mining that could destroy juvenile habitat to shipping noise that might interfere with turtle communication. But every month also brings new solutions, new understanding, and new reasons for hope. Recent population surveys show encouraging trends for some species. Green turtle populations in the Atlantic have increased significantly over the past decade. Pacific leatherback numbers may have stabilized after decades of decline. Hawksbill populations in several Caribbean countries show signs of recovery following protection of nesting beaches and feeding reefs. These successes demonstrate that conservation works when applied with sufficient intensity and duration. They prove that species can recover from even severe population crashes when human threats are reduced and habitats are protected. Most importantly, they show that individual actions from reducing plastic use to supporting sustainable tourism contribute to outcomes that benefit entire species. The story of sea turtle conservation ultimately becomes a story about human choice. We possess the knowledge and technology necessary to ensure these ancient mariners continue their oceanic journeys for millions of years to come. Whether we choose to apply this knowledge with the urgency that the situation demands will determine whether future generations inherit oceans graced by these magnificent creatures, or only know them through museum displays and fossil records. Tonight, sea turtles navigate by moonlight across oceans that human activities are rapidly changing. Tomorrow depends on whether we choose to be part of their solution or their final challenge. The race against time continues, but it remains a race we can still win if we run fast enough, work together effectively, and remember that some things are too precious to lose forever.